everyone, and welcome to my favorite part of the family gathering, our community panel. So selfishly, I love this panel because it means that I get to carve lots of time out of my day to have conversations with these wonderful people here on stage and with our virtual speaker, Tisa, who we'll meet in a moment. But I think it's also such an incredible part of the family gathering because it gives you all a chance to experience really what the epitome of the family gathering is, which is the opportunity to learn through connecting with one another. So the panelists up here, I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves in just a moment, but I wanted to sort of introduce the topic of our discussion first. So this year we are going to be really focusing in on transitions, and for all of our families, life is full of adjustments and new normals, and I think, again, to tie into the theme, which you all know that I love, transition is a really critical part of the transformation that we all undergo as we're growing in our journey. And so I'm excited to have the women on stage here share a little bit about how they've handled transitions in a variety of different settings. And I'm going to hand it over first to Danie to introduce herself.
Yeah, so I'm Danie Coyne. I'm actually from Littleton, Colorado, so it's just like southwest Denver, pretty close. So my parents were technically told at 5 that I might have FOP, and then my first flare-up was at the age of 14, and that's when I found out about it. And my past involvement with the IFOPA includes volunteering with the Family Services Committee, and I spoke at the 2019 FDA Rare Disease Listening Session and the 2022 Drug Development Forum. And I also worked with the IFOPA in college to put on 2 fundraisers. And then just a little about me. Well, this is my first family gathering, in person, so it's super exciting. And I did the virtual ones. And then, fun facts, I have a dog, Griffin, love him, and I'm your typical Harry Potter, Taylor Swift loving millennial. Yeah.
Thank you, Danie. Lisa, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name's Lisa Gillooly. My daughter Sarah is 36. She has FOP. She was diagnosed at 7 months. She had her first surgery at 7 weeks to remove a flare-up off her back. She's the one around in the wheelchair. I have 3 older boys. I have 8 grandkids. My husband is here also, Patrick. We now live in Arizona. Near our 8 grandkids. We enjoy a lot of camping and traveling and doing whatever with the family. I've been involved with the IFOPA or the FOP community since Sarah was about 3 when we found out about Jeannie Pieper, and somebody gave us her name, and I called her, and she said, I said, do you have a child with FOP? And she said, well, no, I have FOP. And I said, wait a minute. I said, how old are you? She said, 33. I said, no. I said, they told us they don't live past 5. And she said, oh no, that's wrong. She said, you've got to talk to Dr. Kaplan. I said, well, who's that? And so then that's how we got involved. And I've been involved since then, and it's been 33 years, and I've met a lot of people and been to several gatherings and to mom's retreats and different things and volunteered on some things, and here I am.
Thank you, Lisa. Kristi?
Hi, everybody. I'm Kristi Gonzales. I'm here from New Jersey. I'm here with my amazing husband, Rico. I apologize if he has offended you during this trip. We're here with our 3 children, Lexus, who is 26, Lily, who is 21, Lexi is running the fun zone, Lily is in the teen zone, and our FOPer, AJ, who is 14. I am a former chair of the board on numerous committees and now running the doctor clinic appointments, trying to keep all the doctors on time. We've been in the FOP community for 12 years. This is our 6th family gathering, 2 virtual, 4 in person. We absolutely love this community. All of you are our family. And for my day job, I am actually the executive assistant for risk management and insurance, and I provide insurance for pharmaceutical companies for clinical trials. So this is all of our world, and we're happy to be here.
Hi everyone, I'm Holly from Connecticut. I'm here with my husband, Tim. We've been married for 12 years. I was diagnosed, or actually misdiagnosed with FOP a little bit later in life. I was 16 years old. I'll be 44 this month. I've been involved with the FOP community and the rare disease community as a whole for a long time. It's something that's very important to me. I've done a lot of different public speaking through the years. It's very important for me to raise awareness of FOP, rare diseases, why it's important to study them, and just very grateful to be a part of this community. It's something I certainly have never taken for granted. The very first person I spoke to, other than Dr. Kaplan, was also Jeannie Pieper. And she has been a mentor to me, as well as several other people within our community through the years. So I encourage you, if this is your first meeting, to network and to find your people in the community that you can connect with, because for me personally, it's been life-changing to have those people that you can reach out to and that understand what you're going through without really having to explain it in too much depth. So if that's one piece you can take away from this gathering, that would be it, is to find your people. And we're all here for you. We're all part of a family. And I hope that you all feel that as you leave here tomorrow.
Thank you, Holly. And then I believe we have Tisa online. Hi, Tisa. I have to say thank you so much for embracing our theme and the beautiful butterfly background and for being with us today. Do you want to introduce yourself? Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, my name is Tisa Caruso. I also go by Teresa. I was diagnosed when I was 5 years old, and I just celebrated my 50th birthday last month. Doctors said I wouldn't live past age 12, but they were wrong. And I've been part of the IFOPA since 1999 when a family friend told me about it. And I've been on the board of directors, and I participate. I'm an admin for the Support for FOP website on Facebook. And I currently participate in the monthly FOP Connects Zooms with Al. And we get together and we chat and we talk about our lives together. Like Holly just said, connection and support is key in navigating the ups and downs of FOP.
And Tisa, we're going to stay with you for a minute. So as a longtime member of the community, you've probably experienced a lot of transitions. And one that I know has been and particularly impactful was when you were at the stage where you were a full-time teacher and you took a trip to Vegas, and it sort of was a big moment of transition in your life. Do you want to share more about that period and how you navigated those changes?
Yes, so I lived in Manhattan for 9 years, where I was a kindergarten teacher, and I was at the hospital and I was sitting on a low bed, and I stood up really fast and I pulled a muscle in my hamstring, and my thigh tripled in size, and it was very painful. And I flew back to Las Vegas for Christmas break. And by the time it was time for me to fly back to Manhattan, the flare-up had impacted my hip, and I could no longer sit to go back to New York to teach. So I had I can't think of the word. I acquired many sick days because when I first started my job, I didn't want my disability to affect their awareness of my ability to work. So I didn't take any sick days for the first 2 years of teaching. So I had accumulated sick days. And so they paid me through April. And during that time, I was in so much pain. But I had previously had bursitis before this flare-up where I could no longer sit, and I was taking too much pain medicine. I was taking a large quantity of pain medicine, and so I decided that for this flare-up, I wasn't going to take any pain medicine, and so I relied on holistic medicines, arnica gels and ibuprofen and things like that. And so I went through a long period of just resting. It took about a year and a half for the flare-up to go away. And it was hard because I missed my students. I was a teacher for 7 years, and it was a big adjustment. But one thing was I went from living in New York with my grandma to going back to Las Vegas with my family. I'm one of 9. I have 9 brothers and sisters. And so it was nice to be among family, to have them, be with me and take care of me and minister to my needs.
And I know you were saying that during that long period, that recuperative period, you really learned what it was that you needed to be able to manage your pain most effectively. You had used a variety of different things, but you said, that you were able to work with a holistic doctor, and through that long and painful flare-up, you found what effectively worked best for you, which is something that I think you said in our conversation, it was time for you to rest and just really learn more about yourself. So finding those transitions and that transformation in that period. But you mentioned you closed with how important your family is. Oh, sorry, Tisa, did you want to say something?
Oh, no. My mom just came in my room, so I was just trying to tell her that I was busy.
Well, I'm glad that she can pop in too, listen in on the panel if she wants. But you ended by talking about how important your family is to you. And Lisa, I know you guys said that as a family you like to do a lot of different things. So can you talk about how you adjusted your hobbies to be able to make sure that you could do things together?
Well, before Sarah was born, we had a Jeep, and we would put the 3 boys in the back, and we would go jeeping and camping and doing all these things. And along came Sarah, and initially, we knew she was sick and fragile or whatever, but we just kept going with her. And we took her camping in tents and whatever, and in the Jeep, and we didn't stop. And then eventually, she got to the point that we couldn't go in the Jeep. But when we moved to Phoenix, my sister has a ranch up north, and so we started going up there on the weekends, and she had a nice recliner she slept inside the house. We camped out, and then recently in January, the house burnt down, and so we had to revamp. So we went and we found a trailer that the back end opens up, and she can get her wheelchair in the back. And so we go to the ranch with the trailer. We had to buy a new van, of course, and the trailer, and we just wheel her, and she reels right up there, and got a bed that fits her needs, and we camp out up at the ranch while we're rebuilding the ranch. And that's what we do. We just, when we want to go and do something, we just figure out how she can come along. We've never stopped doing what the family as a whole wants to do. We just figure out how we're going to do it with her. We have bought ramps. My boys both have steps up in their house, so we bought ramps for each of the houses that they keep there. I mean, we just figure out how she's going to come along. We've never stopped doing what we as a family want to do. And honestly, she loves going those places. She doesn't want to be left out of what we're doing. She enjoys it as much as we do. And boy, that wheelchair just goes all over. She just takes it everywhere. She doesn't stop her either, so.
You guys are a great example of our Ability Toolbox program. A big focus of that is problem solving, and Melissa at the IFOPA is here to help you, but also the Gilloolys have done a lot of problem solving, so be sure to connect with them. Holly, you mentioned in your introduction, that you were diagnosed with FOP a little bit later in life, and you started in on some of these transitions closer to adulthood. Do you want to talk about how you've navigated those as an older adult?
Sure. So my experience was probably a little bit different than maybe the typical person with FOP, where I was diagnosed later in life. I was 16. I did have some symptoms prior to that, but nothing that caused me any reason for concern. So it was definitely an unexpected, difficult progression to go through, and I definitely credit the support of obviously Dr. Kaplan and my medical team for guiding me through that transition. At that time, my mindset was very much to the thought process of, I had just gotten my driver's license, I had just started my first full-time job, I was in high school, I had a boyfriend, and I was not going to let FOP, a diagnosis, change what I planned to do in my life. Through the years, obviously, what I did with my life changed. I had to change directions multiple times, but I still was very, persistent with the fact that I wanted to continue to live a full life. And to Lisa's point, my family was instrumental in that as well. They've supported me every step of the way, always encouraged me, and always included me in everything that we do as a family, and that's really important too. Not to ever say like, oh, we can't do that because, Holly might be uncomfortable or she can't do that. Always finding ways to make sure that I'm included in the family. So that's very important.
Thank you, Holly. And Danie, you weren't diagnosed necessarily as much later in life, but FOP did impact you dramatically as a young adult. Can you talk about how you navigated that?
Yeah. So, up until, as a teenager, my hip was mildly affected in my jaw, but I was still very independent. I went off to college in a different state and lived on my own, and lived out there for 6 years. And shortly after graduating college, I was working a full-time job, pretty stressful job, which probably led to it. But I started having some pretty significant major flare-ups, starting in my right shoulder. And that went on over the course of a year and a half and affected my both shoulders, elbow, back, neck. And I was very stubborn, trying to hold on to my independence as long as I could. And went through about a year of that before I moved back home with my parents. Because at that point, I had lost complete use of my left hand just because of what was pushing on the nerve, and I just couldn't use my left arm at all. So I moved back home with my parents to try to see what was going to happen, if it was going to calm down, and just get the help I needed. And it was very hard moving back home after living independently for so long. And I didn't really know what my life was going to look like. I had worked full-time after college, and that boss out there had actually let me go part-time when things started happening. But then moving back home, I actually had an old boss out here reach out to me and offer me a job. And they allow me to pick my hours, pick my schedule, very flexible. It's really a great situation because it allows me to take off time for clinical trials, to do FOP stuff, to spend time with family, to focus on those other things. And it was hard to come home and realize that I needed help with a lot of little things that I didn't used to need help with. I would often get frustrated if I dropped something, or not being able to put on socks, or little things like that. So it really humbled me, realizing I'd have to ask people for help and relying on others. And it was something I hadn't always done. And I have a very supportive family who of course, jumped in and were willing to help with anything and everything. And so that was my big adjustment, was just realizing that I needed that help and I needed to be willing to ask for that help. I'm still stubbornly independent, but it's okay to ask for help.
And I know there were stages of that transition back home. You know, you talked about working part-time, and your family, as difficult as it may have been, let you make that choice. And ultimately, you know, you got to where you are now, and I know we'll dive more into how it has all worked out in the end, and it's a really beautiful balance. But those stages also happen much younger. And Kristi, you know, AJ has been through elementary and middle school, and can you talk about the stages that you guys have gone through of support as you've transitioned through those different grades?
So I think everything's a transition. I mean, even FOP, we're always pivoting, we're always learning new things. You know, I think school was hard, just making sure that he was safe, that he had an aide if he needed one, and he did, making sure that he had the right equipment. I feel like elementary school was great. We got to middle school and they were not handicap accessible at all. Our 5th and 6th grade classroom was on the 2nd floor. We had to move a classroom down, and now you've segregated one classroom downstairs and everybody else is upstairs. So I think everything is a learning experience, and we've learned what works, what hasn't worked, you know, even equipment. You know, AJ, there was an incident we had at school where, you know, you're a gold card member if you get straight A's, and you get an ice cream party. And our aide was out that day, and they had ice cream, but it was on a stage, and he couldn't get to the stage. And they were like, oh, we don't know what happened. He broke down, and, you know, he shuts down, and that was it. And my husband and the crew, my husband works for our borough in town, and the crew was there, and they were like, we'll build a ramp for the stage today. That'll never happen again. So you figure things out. You know, you work through these transitions. You know, that was hard for us. I think another thing that was really interesting for us was AJ was desperate to be part of a sports team. He wanted to play sports. So we tried Miracle League Baseball, and it just wasn't maybe competitive enough for him. And we were at the hospital having an appointment, and there was this woman there, and she had a sled. And she was like, oh, have you thought about sled hockey? And I kind of giggled at her. I'm like, he'll never play sled hockey, but thank you. And she kind of followed us down the hall. And she was like, no, we have kids with brittle bone and all these other diseases. And I was like, ma'am, I'm very sorry. And she's like, well, we're local. You know, where are you from? And I'm like, we're from New Jersey. And we were at CHOP in Philadelphia. And she was like, well, we're in Voorhees. It's 10 minutes from you. And I worked in Philadelphia at the time. And I said to Rico, I was like, just go take him over there. And 4 hours later, I get a video of him in a sled on the ice, and I'm screaming as I'm running for the train, don't you dare put my baby on that ice. Get him off of there. And Rico's like, he's loving every moment. And we are now an ice hockey family, and AJ plays sled hockey for the disabled league in our community, and it has been life-changing for us. He's part of a team, he's part of a community, and he's with people like him. So those are all the things that we've learned, all these different transitions on getting to the next steps.
The ability to follow those passions is such a critical part of self-fulfillment and self-growth. And I know that in all of the different areas of transitions we're talking about, all of our panelists have evolved, transformed as people. And Tisa, do you want to start by kind of talking about some of your new interests or your passions that you've taken up in the last few years?
Yes. So in 2020, a friend of mine texted me that a school that I had longed to go to in Redding, California, was now available online. So I started ministry school in 2020, and I started preaching on YouTube in 2021, and I lead many groups, and I participate in many groups online on Zoom. And recently, I've embarked on a journey of finding my prophetic voice. The prophecy is encouraging, exhorting, and edifying people. And I've been encouraging people my whole life. Like even, FOP, our flare-ups are like memorial stones. We get to transition. Life is unknown for everybody, but we have physical markers that bring us from stage to stage of life. And my spiritual walk with Jesus has brought me to a place where I rejoice in my suffering, because I know that I always have the victory no matter what, that these bodies are only temporary and our heavenly reality is more real than this reality. And so I go after Jesus with all my heart, and I I live a life that honors him and glorifies his name.
And I know that led you to, you went through ministry school and music school and authored your own book as a sort of following steps of that revelation.
Yes, I just finished my book. I just got the edit notes to edit it. I'm not sure when it's going to be published, but it tracks my whole life, my flare-ups, and the lessons I learned along the way.
I can't wait to read it.
Me too.
Thanks.
And Lisa, I know that Sarah, going back to the school area a little bit, in middle school, you know, she had relatively few adoptions, but then as she got older, she needed more support, and that was sort of an opportunity for her to grow as she was in high school. Do you want to talk a little bit about that transition?
Yeah, middle school was not that bad because, well, first of all, I worked right at the school, but she had a one-on-one aide, but the school was relatively small, so she was still walking fairly good. She had a pretty good limp, but she could maneuver the school pretty well, and you know, maturity-wise, she was fit pretty good in. Then on to high school we went, and things fell apart. The school, her one-on-one aide, the aide had cerebral palsy and walked worse than her. And they would not switch the aide. No matter what I did, they would not switch the aide. It just was a convoluted mess. And one of the teachers, the art teacher, told her she had to draw a self-portrait. Well, these kids don't have great self-esteem, first of all, as Sarah didn't. And the paper went out on the desk way far. Well, her arms are right here. She can't paint on that paper. And so the art teacher's telling me this story, and I said, do you know her arms don't reach out? Oh, I wasn't aware. Well, did you read the IEP? And then at open house, the lady in science, I sat down in a chair and she said, oh, that's where Sarah sits. You must be her mother. I said, yeah. And she said, she just won't raise her hand. She can't raise her hand. And it was like that all the way through until finally and she had so much trouble getting to class because she just couldn't, the walking got worse and worse. And I said, you know, she can't make it to class. This campus is huge. Can we just put her in a self-contained where she doesn't have to wander all around this campus? And then when we did that, she was fine because she'd have to walk around, and that teacher knew all her limitations. I didn't have to tell 7 teachers all her limitations. The one teacher knew her limitations. It set her back a little bit because she didn't get to mingle with all the people, but at lunch she did. And it's about making the adaptations for your kid. For her, that's what fit for her, because it was so hard for her to get around. If it's easy for them to get around, that's a different thing. But for her, it was easier to just put her in a self-contained. And, you know, it's just, you have to figure out the balance. Is it better to let her struggle and not, if she wasn't making good grades, because by the time she got to the class, she was exhausted. And she'd just sit there from exhaustion. And at the end of the day, she was exhausted. And she was having flare-up after flare-up after flare-up. We put her in the self-contained, it all stopped. Because she was resting.
Yeah, it is definitely a process sometimes to get to that phase where, you know, Sarah, or as parents, we feel comfortable speaking up. Holly, do you want to talk a little bit about how you kind of grew into that role as an advocate for yourself?
Sure. So I like what Kristi said earlier, that like we all want to feel like we're a part of something, whether it's part of a team or part of a family. And so for me personally, I feel that in my workplace environment, I feel like I'm part of a team. I have a purpose, to go to work every day, and for me, that's been very fulfilling in my adult journey. I'm obviously, through the schooling process, high school, college. So as an adult, that's been very important, very fulfilling for me to be able to pursue, my career goals, my employment goals. And it has been a transition. There was a lot of different pieces I had to put together to be able to make it happen. But in the end, it was worth the extra effort that I had to put into it, because it's something that's a huge, very important, meaningful part of my life.
And I know you shared that you're naturally more of a reserved, maybe you wouldn't speak up, but your diagnosis really propelled you to grow into that position as well. And your work environment was sort of a safe space to continue that growth.
Yes. I was actually, before I was diagnosed with FOP, as I mentioned, I was 16, so I was a teenager. And prior to that diagnosis, I was very shy, I wouldn't ever raise my hand in class or speak up for myself. And through the years, as FOP has progressed, I have had to kind of force myself out of that naturally reserved shell and be able to advocate for myself and ask for things if there's something I need, if I need a certain accommodation at work or even out in the community, if I want to, go somewhere or go to a restaurant or a hotel or wherever it may be, but being able to speak up for myself. And that's really such an important skill that a person with FOP should learn and practice, because it's something that really makes your life so much more fulfilling. And in the end, if it makes your life easier, it's very important to have that skill of advocacy and being able to just ask for what you need without feeling ashamed or embarrassed or like you're asking for something that that you don't deserve, I guess. But so that's been a process, but it's definitely something that's something I'm glad that I've learned how to kind of flex that muscle and get more comfortable with it.
And Danie, I know through the transition that you shared in your answer to the last question that you evolved a lot in just your mindset about how you view work. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So definitely with my transition, it was a big shift in perspective and priorities for me. Before that, I was kind of in the mindset of the typical life, career, living on your own, just trying to strive for that. So then when all my flare-ups happened and I had to kind of shift that mindset, and it really helped having understanding employers that helped me manage my stress and are flexible with me. Like I said, it allows me time to focus on other things, other interests, clinical trials, FOP events, family and friends. And it would have been really easy for me to fall into the poor me attitude, because I really did, and I might have fell into that for a little bit, because I really did feel like my life was just crumbling and leaving friends and the life I had. But I can acknowledge my suffering and remembering to not dwell on it and choosing to have that hope, faith and gratitude, and just pivoting my plans. And it's definitely not easy, and there are hard times, but I realize it's helped me to live a more purposeful life by making that adjustment and shifting and just learning that maybe there are other priorities that allow me to have a fulfilling life.
I think it's made you one of the funnest people I know, because Danie really prioritizes her friends and her family and making those memories and using that flexible time that she has, because she now works part-time, to invest in the things that really matter to her. So, Kristi, do you want to talk? You guys recently went through a really big phase of your medical journey, and I know that through that you leaned on a lot of different supports. Can you talk a little bit about, what you learned as you were transitioning through not just the medical procedure that you went through, but the recovery process?
So AJ had a surgery in May this year, and we didn't really have a choice. And as everybody knows, in the FOP world, surgery is a no-no. So we were extremely nervous going into it, and really unsure. But it was the best decision we could have made for him. But I think it really helped us as a family because, FOP is a family disease. Everybody in the family is affected. Navigate that together, just kind of figuring out what worked best for our family, who would stay home. We traveled from New Jersey to Maryland for the surgery. We were in the hospital for 22 days. And it was a lot. We navigated work and being off that long and schedules. We navigated our 2 daughters. Even though they're adults, it still affects everybody. And when they get to come and when they couldn't come and they were demanding to come early and we were like, you can't. And just working together as a team and really embracing our family and what we needed. I think Rico and I've learned then to ask for help. We kind of waved the white flag and we're like, okay, this is a little much for us. We need help. And I think our support system, our girls, our parents, our friends were like, okay, what can we do? And that was a huge navigation for us on navigating. But I think what we learned most out of that is AJ had a voice. And he started advocating for himself. And he started saying, yes, this works. No, this doesn't. Stop touching me. I'm very angry. And that was pretty interesting, I think, for Rico and I to see. This is tough. So we have a thing in our family, I'm not sure I can say this, but we embrace the suck. So we set a timer for 10 minutes and we embrace that it's tough and it sucks. And then we move forward. We're allowed to be sad. And I think that by us allowing that to happen has really changed AJ's mental health and attitude, because this was tough and it did suck. And I think he thought that was a little funny too, but it worked for us, and we set that alarm and we were like, okay, are we done complaining about it? Are we done being angry? Because now we're gonna move forward, and what are we gonna do? We stopped answering questions in the hospital and letting him answer. We started asking him what works best for you. Do you like this or do you not like this? Lily is active duty in the Air Force. She changed her schedule and was able to take Mondays. Lex worked 4 10-hour days so she could be home on Thursdays. I went back part-time. Rico stayed out for 3 months. Just getting him to recover and just learning together how to navigate that transition. They really wanted him, once his back was healed, in a pool for aquatics. Our rehab center's pool broke. Our neighborhood put a pool up from Walmart in our backyard. Our girls got in that pool every day for hours, getting him to blow a ball with a straw across the pool, working on his lung health and getting him to where he needed to be. As everybody knows, I do not like the cold. So I got in that cold pool and he said to me, watch this, and he went underwater and he picked up 7 things, and I thought we made the right decision.
And that was a beautiful segue. The next kind of phase or topic within transitions is just how important the team and the support you have around you as you're going through those transitions is. And Tisa, do you want to talk from your very early ages, actually, going way back, about how your family was a support to you?
Yes. So I developed scoliosis along with my FOP, and the doctors wanted to put me in a back brace, but my parents gave me the decision to make whether I wanted to wear it or not, because they said the bone would grow regardless, and I wanted to play. I didn't want to wear a brace. I just wanted to play with my friends and my family, so I chose not to. But yeah, I have 9 siblings, and we grew up in a neighborhood, and everybody had like 3 to 5 friends, and they would all come over and play and swim in our pool. And we had a treehouse out front, and they'd play. And so I always had a lot of love and support growing up. And Danie mentioned pity. Nobody ever felt sorry for me. Everybody always just supported me and treated me like normal. And I love that. And sometimes when I go out in public and people look at me and they just kind of stare, I just kind of have to laugh because I'm like, I know I'm pretty. I know you're looking at me because I have the joy of Jesus in my heart. You know, like I didn't really put that together until a few years ago. One of my caregivers, we were going through one of the casinos in Las Vegas, and people were staring at me, and she was like ready to fight. She was like, people are looking at you. I don't like it. I don't like it. And so I started singing that song from the movie The Bodyguard. And I will always love you. So it's nice to have support around you with people who defend you and care for you and look at you as the valuable person that you are. And our families are so important to speak into our identity that we are worthy, that we are loved, that we are chosen, that God doesn't make mistakes, that we are whole in Him, and we get to live this life in community, loved and known and seen for who we are, despite the disease that we have been given.
And how important it was for your parents to start, teaching or sharing that framework so early on, because it's so obvious now how deeply ingrained that is in you and how vital it is to have that team approach or that team mentality, and it goes back to your very early childhood. So, but
yes.
Lisa, you, because of all of Sarah's needs, you've had to rely really heavily on a healthcare team to support you. Can you talk about your recent move, how you found your new support system in that area?
Well, it wasn't easy. We found one doctor, and he was a good doctor. He didn't know anything about FOP, and he acted in the beginning like, okay, I can handle this, but he just didn't seem to be like following up and doing a lot. So I went one day to the urgent care, this doctor, and she was wonderful. And so it's this place called My Doctor now. I don't know if they have them out here, but I really liked her. And she said, I can be your primary care. And I was like, oh, that'd be nice. So Sarah had an injury to her toe, and I needed somebody to look at it. So I took her over there. And this doctor just went crazy over her and wanted to help her and sent an x-ray thing to the house and all this stuff. And we've been there 3 years, and I had not gotten that much care in 3 years. And this lady just got us all kinds of services. They'll come to the house and do blood draws and x-rays and all these things, and she's put us on to some other care that hopefully will give us a lot more help in the house, because we're Sarah's primary caregivers. And I won't go into that. If you want to know what that is, you can come talk to me and we can talk about it. But it's going to give us a lot more help inside the house. And so that is going to be just like a relief. But you have to really, if one doctor is not helping and you're not feeling good about it, go look for someone else. Because if you're not getting good care, go look for someone else. Because it's just, you need good care, especially with our kids. You need somebody that's going to be compassionate and want to help you.
And I think it's really important to name that. So palliative or hospice care is the newer resource that your doctor referred, and there's a lot of misconception out there that is only for end-of-life circumstances, and that's not the case. Palliative care can be used for people who are at all stages of their journey, but it does, Lisa, I know you've shared, get you sort of a whole new level of support.
Yeah.
And that's how the people have been coming to the house and helping more and more with Sarah's care. So
Sarah's going to be going on hospice care, but that just means we're going to get a whole lot of services for free. But it's not going to impede what we're doing already. And it's going to allow a doctor to manage her care, medicine to the house, and all her care will be done in the home. We don't have to load her up and take her somewhere. But there's a lot of families out there with kids near her level that some of this care would be good for, that you don't have to load them up and take them out. And it's just, it's good care. Really
something
good
to
care.
consider and definitely look into more.
Yeah.
And Holly, I know that your parents definitely helped to encourage you. They had more of a, I don't want to say hands-off approach, but definitely not hand-holding. Do you want to share more about that style?
Sure. So I think my parents were pretty similar to Teresa's parents as well, where they always encouraged me to do whatever it was I wanted to do, and also by not treating me differently, even though I did have obviously a very serious medical condition, and maybe it was because I was a little bit older, and just always treating me the same as my other siblings. I'm the oldest there's 4 of us, and we always had the same opportunities. We always were encouraged equally. We do a lot of traveling as a family. We're very close. We do a lot of, we get together often. And so, as I mentioned earlier, that's been a huge, huge support system for me to have that, to have my family behind me always, and just to always be there to understand whatever it is I'm going through. So that support network has been huge, especially through the transitions. And I think we also have a similar philosophy to Kristi's family, where it's always about moving forward. Yes, you have the moments where things are really difficult, and you're just really struggling with whatever it may be, FOP or not related, because we always all obviously have other issues in life. It's not just always all about FOP as a family. So being able to acknowledge that, yes, this is difficult, and we can talk about it, and we can problem solve, but not dwell on it, and then move forward. And that's been instrumental in being able to stay positive and navigate the transitions successfully without getting kind of bogged down in the negative aspects of FOP.
And Tim, sorry, I'm going to spotlight you for a minute. I don't want to underscore that he is also such an important part of your support system, and I know that you share that there's some things that you feel more comfortable talking to him about than your parents. I don't know if you want.
Yes, that's definitely true. I guess especially as I've gotten older, I don't know. I've always been more quiet, more reserved about FOP. I don't want extra attention or special treatment. So, when I met my husband, when I first met him, I did not have FOP. And then we we were friends, we were very close friends for a while. Then I actually moved away, so we lost touch. And during that period, that's when I was diagnosed with FOP. And then we reconnected years later. So it's he kind of knew both sides of my story. And he, accepted both sides of my story. And I've always felt just most comfortable asking him for the help that I need, talking about whatever I'm struggling with. So it's just been really, I feel very grateful to have that type of a relationship in my life.
And Danie, do you want to talk about moving back home, how you, I think, recognized some more of the ways in which your family was really important to you, just in your sense of security?
Yeah. So so my parents and I have 3 brothers, and when I went off to college, 2 of my older brothers lived nearby. One was in the same city. And so I always had that support. And then moving back home with my parents, and kind of like what's been said, like my parents were also very encouraging, and we always found a way to do things, and they always like supported and pushed me to make goals and to achieve those. And same with my brothers, and we use a lot of humor. But moving back home, it was like, I mean, my parents are always so supportive and helpful, but it was still always in the back of my mind that I was going to live on my own again, and that I wanted that. And it wasn't until last year I had a scare with a fall at home, and my mom was home, and I am so grateful that she was there, because I don't know, I mean, I just would have been stuck if she wasn't there, or I don't know what would have happened. And that just really like shifted my mindset on that too, that just like moving back home and like realizing how important it is to have people around, and to have that support and that care. And then like the benefits of living with family outweighs the desire for like the typical lifestyle that I was kind of striving for. And like I've said, it gives me an amazing support system. And also like living at home and having my low demand job and flexibility allows me that extra time to focus on other priorities and like cultivating those relationships. And still, like, I mean, I always had the mindset of like doing as much as I could while I still can, and I'm still able to do that with also having that support and like realizing how important that is.
And Kristi, I feel like everyone already knows, because your entire family is so deeply involved in the family gathering, how supportive and the roles that they play. But do you want to talk a little bit about specifically, you know, your daughters and how they've been a vital part of AJ's?
So I think our daughters have both taken a different take on FOP. Our oldest daughter kind of made it her career. She's child life rec therapist. She went into that career probably because of AJ. She wants to help people and change the world and make it a better place for him. I think you can kind of see that for the people here who have younger kids and the activities that they do in there. Our daughter Lily really struggled with FOP, really struggled. You know, and that was tough. And you have to kind of let them be who they are. And, you know, Lily chose a different path. She went into the military. She recently came home to stay. She's still active duty, but she's closer because she wanted to be here during AJ's surgery and help, and we are so incredibly grateful for that. So it's been amazing to see both their journeys so different, and just embrace who they are and what they bring to the table, and try to include them differently has been something pretty special. You know, we've gotten Lily some help so she could deal with FOP a little bit better. Lily doesn't like the unknown of FOP, and I don't think any of us do. So she always wants to know, well, what's next and what will happen, and we don't know, and that's the scary part. So I think that, you know, it's been good and it's been bad, and I think, you know, we own that.
And that was one thing I meant to say at the beginning, is that I never want to paint a rose-colored glasses picture of these transitions, and I hope you've heard in everyone's story that there's ups and downs. And on the sibling note, we do have a support group, a Facebook support group for siblings, adult siblings. So if you have an adult sibling in your family and you'd like them to connect with other adult siblings of individuals with FOP, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to get them connected to that. But I should have warned the audience, we never have time for Q&A on this panel. It always is inevitable. There's so much to share. So before we close, I do want to do sort of a speed round through our panelists to offer them a chance to say any sort of closing words. Tisa, do you want to say a message before we sign off?
Yes. So butterflies have 2 sets of DNA. The caterpillar has a different set of DNA, and then it becomes a chrysalis, and then when it becomes a butterfly. And so we have two sets of DNA. We have a physical DNA and a spiritual DNA. And when we embrace that DNA, we get to live a life above our physical circumstances. And I just wanted to encourage everybody, if they don't know Jesus, they can invite him into their heart and realize that spiritual DNA.
Thank you, Tisa. Lisa, do you have any closing words you want to share?
I have a lot of knowledge about the insurance and Medicaid, SSI, so if anybody has any questions or if anybody's needing help with SSI or Medicaid or your state's benefits, let me know and I can try to help you out if there's anybody that needs help.
Lisa helps me with that all the time. Holly, do you have anything you want to share?
Sure. So I don't normally like to read things, but I happened to find something that I saw online yesterday. I just wanted to read it out loud. It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent. It is the one most adaptable to change. And Charles Darwin said that. And it goes on just to say that adaptability is the single most important trait for success in life. The explorer doesn't set out on his voyage trusting that the seas will remain calm and that he will stay perfectly on course, but rather in his ability to adapt when the inevitable storms and chaos arrive. You are the explorer, and life is your voyage. You don't need to trust in your plan or your intelligence. You need to trust in your ability to adapt.
Very good.
Danie, do you want to say anything in closing?
Yeah. So I just don't want to forget anything, so I was going to read it. But I just wanted to close with saying, like, focusing more on things that bring joy rather than being defined by successes or career, which is definitely the mindset I used to have. And in order to feel purpose or felt like I was making a difference, I always felt like I had to have that ideal or typical life. But through my transitions, I found that maybe my purpose is something else, and I can have meaningful experiences and feel more fulfilled by focusing on other priorities and realizing the amazing blessings I have. And navigating new normals is hard, and adjusting to new limitations is a constant with FOP. And I found that reaching out really helps, and I just encourage everyone to reach out, whether that be to loved ones or the community, because there are so many people out there who care and just want to love and support.
Thank you, Danie. Kristi, I'll hand it over to you.
I don't know how I had to go after all of that. But a wise FOP mom said to me, if you treat AJ like he's disabled, he will be. And if you treat him that he's capable of the world, he will be. And that is kind of what we've gone with on our journey. FOP is what AJ has, it's not who he is. He is funny, he is kind, he is smart. He loves the Kansas City Chiefs, and we're Eagles fans, and we don't know where we went wrong. But I think that, especially for new families, just have hope, breathe, and make amazing memories. And alone we are rare, and together we are strong.